The following podcast, iDesign Lab, is an SW Group production in association with 5 Star and TW Interiors. This is iDesign Lab, a podcast where creativity and curiosity meet style and design. Curator of interiors, furnishings, and lifestyles. Hosted by Tiffany Woolley, an interior designer and a style enthusiast, along with her serial entrepreneur husband, Scott. iDesign Lab is your ultimate design podcast, where we explore the rich and vibrant world of design and its constant evolution in style and trends. iDesign Lab provides industry insight, discussing the latest trends, styles, and everything in between to better help you style your life through advice from trendsetters, designers, influencers, innovators, fabricators, and manufacturers, as well as personal stories that inspire, motivate, and excite. And join us on this elevated, informative, and lively journey into the world of all things design. Today, we're joined by the incredible Kelly Kern, a true design dynamo with a rich entrepreneurial journey. Originally from North Nevada, Kelly spent over 30 years in Atlanta before relocating to Florida. She's a West Coast girl at heart, but deeply influenced by her Southern surroundings. From founding her first business, The Paper Gourmet, at just 24, to pioneering the luxury home care category with Caldrea and Mrs. Meyers, Kelly's diverse career is a perfect blend of creativity, business savvy, and a passion for design. Now she's channeling that energy into restoring historic homes and refining her design skills, all while playing a key role at J. Douglas. Stick around as we dive into her fascinating journey and what's next for this multi-talented visionary.
Welcome to the iDesign Lab podcast. Today we're excited to have Kelly Kerns in our studio, and she's going to go on a journey telling us about her journey into the interior design field of being a rep for some really, really incredible brands. And we're excited to have you here today. I wanted to get started with a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Thank you, first off, for having me. So born and raised in Northern Nevada, moved to the East Coast years and years ago, always imagined I'd make my way back to the West, and here I am in my mid-50s and still here on the East Coast. But I think I can safely say now this is probably home. I've been in Florida now for just about 3 years. I relocated here, as I said, from Atlanta, actually for this job. I work under a sales agency that's based out of Atlanta, so I'm an independent sales rep, but what they call a sub rep, which means that basically all the administrative and operational tasks that come with this job, and there are many, those are managed by kind of a central point in Atlanta. We also have a full-time showroom, not just in Atlanta, but also in High Point, North Carolina. Interestingly enough, I actually hired this sales agency that I work under now as a rep. I hired them to represent one of my brands that I managed as a sales manager, 14, 15 years ago.
Oh, wow.
So I met Doug Self, who's the principal of J. Douglas, all those years ago, and we became, obviously professional friends and colleagues, but then maintained a friendship over the years, even after I had kind of stepped away from the industry in the years, the year leading up to COVID and those years.
Okay.
And when this opportunity came about, he reached out to me to see if I'd be interested. And I thought, why not take a chance? So that's what brought me to Florida.
How did you get your start in interior design or in furniture?
Well, it's interesting. I've always... my sister and I joke about this. I instinctively, Lord knows how, can find my way to the most expensive thing in any shop or boutique.
That sounds like Tiffany.
That's right. It's our own special gift. But that also lends itself to design. And my mom, I mentioned to Tiffany earlier, I grew up with a single parent, and my mom was pretty exceptional. And one of the ways that she was, I think, so special was that she made our home truly,
beautiful.
Our house, a true home. So it was a space that was comfortable and loving and warm, and we didn't have a lot, but what we had was special. And the things that she collected, I say collected, she was not a gadget, she was not a trinket lady, but it was a home
Everything
that was
put
together with heart and things that were meaningful to her and certainly ultimately to us. And that's something that my sister and I both, I think, inherited from her. So we've always had a love of design and spaces. And I can remember as a young girl flipping through design magazines and dog-earing pages and, cutting out pages and even pasting them on my bedroom wall. I can remember, I might have been 7 or 8 years old, and I was late to school one morning, and my mom was getting irritated because she was ready to go, and I was too busy because I was making a waterbed for my Barbie dream house.
Oh, I love that. So you really have
basically like
this instinct inside you.
Yeah, so
you're
it's
drawn there.
Yeah, and I will say that I'm not a designer. I don't have the credentials. I've not gone to school for design, but I do have a love for it, and I feel so fortunate to be able to be surrounded by the talent that I am. People like Tiffany. I mean, I see their vision executed, and my home is really important to me, and I'm so fortunate to be able to play a part in kind of the execution.
So would you say it's your mother inspired you to go in this direction, or is there another person in the industry or icon? Or
No, I've always I've really kind of gravitated to this, but my background really, sales came naturally to me, but I was always on the sales management side of the industry. My first love, which is kind of funny, is paper, believe it or not. I loved to design invitations and stationery, and I actually launched a business. I opened a retail store at the age of 23 in Annapolis, Maryland, called the Paper Gourmet, and it was gifts and invitations
Such
to please
a cute name.
every palette. Thank you. And it was such an exciting venture. And I look back and I think, gosh, that was
23.
It was such a bold move at that age.
Wow.
But I was pretty fearless because I knew at that age I had so little to lose.
Yeah.
And I think now it's like I know too much,
We
right? So we're
overthink,
ruled by
yes.
fear in a way that we aren't when we're younger. So I encourage people that are young to like really take risks that you wouldn't otherwise take, because as you get older, you're not in the same position. You might not be able to do that. And it ended up being just an incredible journey. But that was really kind of the entree to the industry for me. Was I had this shop, and I loved being a part of people's lives. I was doing invitations, for
Personal events.
Exactly, all sorts of, the meaningful, these moments in their life that are so meaningful, engagement announcements, and then wedding invitations, and of course the baby showers.
There's a lot of design that's involved in all of that.
Absolutely. And I still have a love for all of
there.
that. And that was, back again quite some time, 30 years ago. But I enjoyed the gift component of that shop. So I had gifts and so forth. And I would go to the Atlanta market.
Yeah.
And that, again, just kind of opened my eyes to this bigger
much
world.
out there.
And I was just so intrigued by their creativity all around me. Interestingly enough, that was actually when I was in, again, in a different building. Anybody who's been to the America's Mart knows there are different buildings, and each actually house different types of product.
Okay.
So the Merchandise Mart, which is where our showroom is housed, of course, is namely furniture, home decor, and that was a building I never stepped foot in because it was kind of out of reach. It wasn't something a category of product that I would have bought into. So you can imagine years later when I actually had a chance to be exposed to that, it was just, to me, it was like my everything.
Like all that's available.
Yeah.
So were you buying for your store?
I was.
So you were a buyer at such a young age. Like, how did you?
Well, she was buying, she's selling, and she's
And
also
and
designing,
creating,
and running a
it was
business.
It was such fun, and and I really have to credit my my boyfriend at the time, who still is a close friend to this day. He was such a great supporter of kind of like I was pretty fearless. The backstory to this, by the way, is my sister and I lost our mom pretty young, like a year before this happened, or maybe about 2 years before this happened. And quickly thereafter, we lost our father figure. My mom's only brother had passed unexpectedly. Literally, it was like it was a real loss for both of us. And we made kind of a pact to one another that with what little money was left to us, it wasn't some big windfall. We really felt like the best thing we could do really would be, as a tribute to both of them, was to take a risk that we otherwise, and to do something we otherwise would not have had a chance to do. My sister ended up moving to Guatemala, and she taught school in Guatemala and traveled, and that really was kind of, she had a love of travel early in life, and she actually was in the Peace Corps in Rwanda, if you can believe it.
Wanderlust,
all those years ago. And but so that was her journey, and that was her venture. And for me, I was a little more comfortable staying home or staying close by. Josh and I were relocating from Atlanta. We were gone for about 3.5 years to Annapolis. He had a job in D.C., and Annapolis was so charming and idyllic. And we became, such a part, my business became such a part of that kind of that local story, that just a fiber of that community, and they just it was just an incredible and storybook experience for me. But that was how the business started.
What a segue, really.
Yeah.
What a transition.
And then when I sold the business, Josh had a chance to move back to Atlanta. We both actually were really
ready.
We really loved Atlanta, so we were happy to go back. But I ended up going to work as the sales manager for the Simplest Group, which was definitely kind of the preeminent sales agency for higher end gift and low and smaller decorative items and so forth. But they had things like the Times collection. Do you remember the Times? And they had that Fraser fir candle that everybody had. It was all the thing, and and some personal care. But it was a boutique agency run by Ron Simplest, and again, I had transacted business with them as a buyer, and then suddenly I flip-flop and I get to the sales management side and worked with them as a sales manager. So that was kind of my segue.
What an amazing,
thank you.
little story. And I love how something can start so small and impactful at the same time, brings you full circle almost to where you are now because not both, but multiple brands that you represent now have such a huge following.
Yeah, so tell us about J. Douglas.
So Doug Self actually is the founder and president of the company, and if you've not had a chance to meet him, I hope at some point when you come to Atlanta or High Point I can introduce you. He's quite remarkable. He was a rep himself years ago, and I think he saw an opportunity to maybe do things different and better, and so he launched his own sales agency. And gosh, I don't know, trying to think of how many years. I'm going to guess that was over 20 years ago, maybe 25 years ago. But he's definitely known in the industry as kind of as a pioneer and a leader. And he runs his business with just such organization, such professionalism. He's such a kind person, and everything is very everything is very well planned out. I learned so much from just even a conversation from Doug. There's always a takeaway that's important and meaningful. And he's really a great partner, but he really lets us run our business. I mean, this is in fact a business that's my own, and I get to run it. And I have an admin who's fantastic. She's almost full time. She's based out of Orlando, because you really in this job, especially when you have multiple manufacturers, the responsiveness is everything. You really need to be able to get back to people in a
especially the world we live in today.
Yes.
People do
communication.
Yeah.
Constant.
Well, I know that I'm the queen of immediate gratification, and if I can't get an answer right away, I'm on to the next thing. So I kind of go about my business with the expectation that most people are probably a lot like me. Yeah. So I will usually be on the road, and Shoshana, who's my admin, we call her Shosh, she is there and on the computer, and so people get answers and information and orders put through right away. So we really try and be and if I'm going to compete, I have exceptional product, but more than that, we have exceptional service. So I want to make sure that my accounts, people like yourself, know.
So J. Douglas is representing a number of different brands.
I feel like they were one of the beginning, because I feel like now so many groups are under umbrellas. But if I now think about it, with what you just mentioned, J. Douglas was probably one of the original that had multiple brands
in our industry.
But J. Douglas is like a company in itself.
It was J. Douglas Living.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And now it's just, and I think he just dropped the Living. He rebranded, I think, about 10 years ago, and so it's just J. Douglas. But again, the reputation for J. Douglas, just the way he operates the business, the way that we as a company, our culture, all of those things, it's quite something to be aligned and really be a part of that organization. There are 15 of me within the organization that do what I do.
Throughout the United States?
Throughout the Southeast and Mid-Atlantic.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
That's not a huge, that's a special group.
It is, and we're close. We have a really interesting, and some of these people have been there from the beginning, which is a real testament, obviously, to the organization, but also to the brands that we represent.
What are some of the brands you represent?
So, gosh, I'm lucky. I have a pretty fantastic line list. Off the top, Arch Harriers obviously is where we met initially, and such an incredible company. Again, their culture is really interesting. The product is even more phenomenal.
What does their development process look like at Arterias? Do you get involved in anything like that?
I think that they're certainly, I think that they're receptive to the feedback that we get, and we do share that with obviously our contact within their company. But they're such a well-oiled machine. They have a process that, again, their planning is several years out, right?
Wow.
So what we'll see, in this next release has been actually in the works for probably 3-4 years, actually probably more likely 3. But they're such a as a brand, they're such a leader in the industry.
And you're talking about Arterias.
Arterias in particular.
And that's really forward-thinking, trending.
They are. But all of these companies have to be. Again, the process involved in product development is a timely one. I mean, it's a long run. But with Arterias in particular, they're the big player. Their factories that they
really
work with, those are their factories, or they are factories where they're really the number one probably manufacturer in terms of volume. So they really they're always going to be a priority for those people.
And it's not necessarily a customized line. I mean, there is some custom upholstery options, not custom, but within there
is, and that would be more for that customization, that would be really in their hospitality or contract division.
Okay.
And that division is not something that I actually manage. Again, the business has grown so much that we really have to kind of stay in our lane.
Yeah.
So I sell primarily completely to residential designers and retailers. And my territory is, South Florida, basically to Delray and up to Vero. So it's a lovely and very, it's a nice sized territory, but it's manageable. And that's important because you want to, again, be responsive.
Is more of your business on the designers or retail?
It's more heavily weighted with designers, for sure.
That's what we're hearing. That's
a trend we're hearing.
Yeah. I feel like it's been that way for a while. Even when I was on the sales management side, I really saw that shift several years ago where really our volume was, by and large, coming and generated by the design trade. The retailers, that footprint, it's expensive to run a retail store.
And they're somewhat disappearing.
Yes, they are. And I hate that. I personally love the experience of shopping. I like that. I love a well-curated retail experience.
Yes.
But I also understand, having been a retailer, it's a lot, and and of course my business was a small business in comparison. But the design trade is so very important and vital to what we do, and I would say that's really kind of the future of the industry.
There's a lot of growth still to be had in the interior design industry, which is exciting for me. And in my own research, I've realized it's something that they even say AI won't really interfere with, because so much of it is intellectual property that only people can explore and provide. And there is a connection online and on site or in meetings on a daily basis. So,
there's a personal connection as well with every client.
Yeah, and someone's personal space. I mean, that's so important, right? Like, you get to know them. There's a real intimacy to that relationship that's so important, and a computer can't generate that.
No.
We still find that the vast majority of consumers don't understand interior designers. Think that it's just too expensive to go to interior designer. I'll just go to Rooms to Go, or just go to a furniture store. And, and part of the reason why we're doing this podcast is to really get the message out there that if you're an individual who's looking to do your home, go see an interior decorator.
You'll save yourself money.
Yes.
And I
really
say
will.
that. I'm like, a good designer shouldn't cost you more than what you were going to spend.
Making a decision for a home product, lighting, furniture, rugs, so often people go about it on their own, and when they do, they end up actually with product that they can't use.
Mm-hmm.
This happens all the time.
The
lighting doesn't, the sizing's off. The lighting doesn't correspond with the existing design plan. There are so many things, and it's very expensive.
It is.
They're walking into a furniture store, and they're seeing, I love all this, how this looks. They're putting it then in their house, going, why doesn't it look the same in my house? Well, they're not thinking about, the furniture store had nice rugs. They had, different lighting. They had wallpaper up. They had, which designer brings it all together.
I mean, something just as simple as, again, knowing how to, like, the placement of a rug and the dimensions of a rug. Mm-hmm. I know, if I'm not mistaken, years ago, you interviewed Rip Nance.
Yeah.
I think Rip was on here, and I
yeah.
love Rip. So
do
Rip and
too.
I are
He
counterparts in the territory. We actually share one brand, Loloi
Loloi,
rugs.
the rugs.
So Loloi has a little bit different business model in that most brands that I represent, I am the exclusive representative for this given territory. With Loloi, we actually share the territory. So he has a set accounts that are assigned to him, as do I. And
It could be a little rough, couldn't it?
not at all. It actually, and again, I mean,
There's no like
They're reasonable
competition.
people.
I'm gonna.
yeah, I'm not going to lie. When I first joined on, I thought that seemed a little. I thought, gosh, this is a little shaky to me. We all play really nicely in the sandbox together, and especially Rip. I mean, I don't know anybody who doesn't know.
Back on because we did it during COVID. We weren't
is that right?
together.
He's
Yeah,
such a stitch.
he is a stitch.
He's so funny. But Loloi is one that we share, and I can tell you, like again, rugs. That can be expensive. You're making it. I mean, you don't. People generally don't know how to buy a rug, and you know what? Google's not going to tell you.
Too small.
Correct.
Google's
that's
going to
the
guide
person-
you
They always go
only
too
so
small.
much.
That's the personal side to
Yeah,
it.
absolutely. Plus, you want to work with somebody's existing home. Not everybody's doing a full redesign.
Yeah.
Not everybody has the budget for that.
Right.
So you need somebody like yourself to come in who has the background and the training and the resources. They don't know where to go. You save infinite time and money by working with a professional design trade.
But a lot of people think they know, or they think that, oh, there's this great store. I'm going to go there. I'm going to redo my bathroom. And they realize, oh, I need tile and marble or whatever. And they go, oh, I can do that. Just marble and tile places.
Yeah, thank
then
you.
when they get it all put together, they
thank
go,
you,
like,
HGTV. Yeah, they make it look so easy, and the budgets are so unrealistic on that show. I always laugh because
They really are. Design on time. I mean, totally. Jumping back though to like Artiers, and even you just mentioned Loloi. So how do you design and create and balance your personal business and brand essentially between brands that are under the J. Douglas umbrella and then brands that are not?
So now I don't actually do design myself. Obviously, I work exclusively with designers, so I sell to design trades. So I'm not doing design plans, but I actually do help my designers and my retailers occasionally if they're
and we
looking
rely
for.
on you guys too.
So often I'll see.
because you know you line better than
Exactly.
than we would.
Yeah, and I also know like scale. We can look at the dimensions for anything online, and I mean, you're the designer, but I can give you some sense because I've seen it in person. I can speak to the experience more fully or explain kind of like, is this going to actually cast enough light? Is it bright enough? Is it going to, these types of things that you can't really gather from just a website alone.
Correct.
So it's really important that I know my brands intimately, and that's really the service and this that I provide. But I also have other brands other than Artiers.
Yes, so tell us about some more.
I'm really lucky to have the line package that I do. And I'm probably not going to name all of them, but really, I offer textiles. So really, even down to the fine details, bath linens, bed linens, beautiful bedding, and even actually the inserts for your personal space. I find it surprising often that not all of my designers actually take the project that full step.
That's Tiffany. She takes
not
it.
every
I think
project allows you to take that full step. I, of course, would love every project to allow me to do that.
Yeah. And me too.
We just did an installation 2 days ago. I think it was like 2 truckloads of furniture and whatnot. The house was, Tiffany redid the whole house, brought everything in. And she also bought them all their new plates, their cups, their knives and forks and spoons.
Truly turnkey.
Everything. Towels, the linen, including remodeling the whole house, all new floors, staircase, wallpaper, and all furniture, but even the little teeny things.
It has to be so satisfying for you to
to
step back and see and recognize kind of the finished product.
Of course.
And it's such a personal. Again, it's really such a personal expression. Again, there aren't many things that you can do in someone's life that are more personal than helping them design their home.
Right.
And again, their bedrooms, for example.
I was just going to say, so their bedroom. So when you say one of the lines you represent is like what, the downs, the duvets.
So I represent Peacock Alley.
Okay, I love
which
Peacock
is out of
Alley.
Dallas, family-owned company. Actually, most of the companies that we represent are still,
of course,
family-owned. Lovely brand, and actually, Peacock Alley is the brand that I hired J. Douglas for, all those years ago. So I know the family. I'm very fond of them. The product that they they manufacture is beautiful.
Yeah, it is
There's
beautiful.
Where is that out of?
And they're out of Dallas.
Dallas.
And they actually have, a lot of custom capabilities that just don't exist in the industry any longer. And that's all done in Dallas, their Dallas workroom.
Wow.
Most of their products, either Italian or made in Portugal, and the line is vast, but it's really kind of something for everyone. I mean, I can do something on a more contemporary scale. I can do something a little bit more traditional. I can do monograms. I mean, it's nice to have that kind of under my, kind of in my offerings.
Wow.
But in addition to Peacock Alley, I also have one other textile brand. It's called Pom Pom at Home. And it's fun because it's just got that really chic, kind of laid back luxe linen look, effortless, stylish, really comfortable. And they're amazing. Every market, I'm just kind of in awe. You come to market because you want to see new and exciting, and they deliver every time.
We went to market this year. We saw you there.
Yeah, in our interiors.
First time for me to ever go. When we left, I said to Tiffany, you need to start bringing clients here. Like when you're redoing an entire house, this is like in 2 days, you could show them and they could sit in.
I'm hoping.
Depends on the client, right?
Yes, and I'm hoping that like through the podcast, and through the growth is really growing people's understanding of what is out there. And I feel like one thing that you realize at market is everything has its value there. Like I feel like people aren't like, when we're together and you're looking at a bottom line of a number of like, I want to spend that on that chair, or blah, blah, blah. Like when you see there is a difference. And I feel like that's the biggest takeaway from High Point is just there is a difference of the quality of, at least the things I'm looking at there.
Sure.
It all holds its value and then some. And I feel like that's something that's, depending on the client, might get lost. And I feel like it's my job to really bring that back of like, it is special. And it's about creating this unique, story that is your home.
Well, and kind of really introducing them to fruit, like kind of their future heirloom, if you will.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, so that is hopefully furniture.
I want to go back
it
to
will last, but also that hopefully that their children will want at some point to have in their home. That kind of idea.
Without a doubt. And you know what, like I feel like there was a time where the heirloom furniture like industry in our instant gratification, made overseas mentality where things were in stock. I would say even I lost sight of that as we were like kind of talking out in the office. My career started with only high-end residential. I was only doing, $1 million interiors to $7 to $10 million houses. That was like where I started, very young. And then as my life changed, becoming a mom and going to schools and, kid events, I started meeting, families who were just building their life. And my career just on its own, trying to transition with friends, being like, well, can you help me? And like, can you help me? And they couldn't necessarily do the $1 million interior in 9 months or 12 months or 18 months, but they were able to do it over a few years,
Gotcha.
And it really was special to me to be able to introduce all this to them.
Oh, yeah.
Because
absolutely.
where else... I feel like it does get lost in furniture stores. Like you say, you love a beautifully curated store. A big furniture store, even though they're really lovely for some reasons, I just don't think it translates like...
I'll say, having lived in Atlanta for so long, the retail environment there is obviously pretty impressive, just because obviously the size of the city, the sheer population can support it. Mm-hmm. But I love a retail, and I'm curious what you like, but in a retail environment, I love a retail environment that has, a real mix. I want a layered, I want to go in and be inspired, not just by what's new. I want to see some product that is found, like true art and found objects, things that are being repurposed.
Things that are unique and different. It's not like you're walking into a regular just furniture store.
Do you find with your projects, do you incorporate a lot of that type of stuff too?
I would love to spend more time, and I hope to. And we do spend time doing that. And obviously there's some jobs that lend you to be able to do more of that than others. But to me, that is what is special too about going to High Point and even going to be and seeing our interiors, is because for a lot of around here, those are still special found pieces, even though they might not be vintage or, completely from another time. They are so unique.
Yes.
And the finishes and the mixed metals.
And there's a story.
And there is.
To the product.
An artistic story.
I mean, with each of my brands, and again, I have to give credit to several of them, Villa and House.
Which I love.
Which formerly was called Bungalow 5, and they're amazing.
I want to hear why they changed the name. Not that I
so
matter.
I think I can't... I'm on camera. I can't be sure 100% that my story is correct, but I believe that there was an ownership, like a
transfer
issue. But the ownership of the company did not change, thankfully, because they're lovely people to work with and certainly to represent. But I think there was Bungalow, the name, even though they had been in business for I think at 30 years at that point.
Wow.
Yeah. So so they changed the name, and honestly, things have continued to flow just the same.
I know, isn't it one of those things we overthink?
So, and Villa and House doesn't always roll off the tongue so easily, so I refer to it as V&H.
V&H, I do
just
too,
easier.
because that's the website.
Yeah, exactly. It's much easier. But that brand
is a good
they just
one.
reinvent themselves constantly. It's again, the materials, people like Arteriors. I mean, these companies are so smart about design, and again, they're thinking way far ahead of what I could even get my head around. And another one of my partners that's really just, I would say, are just killing it in terms of, introducing new product and being really aggressive in their pursuit of new business always, and their service is fantastic, is Worlds Away.
I love
which,
Worlds
was
Away.
A smaller brand years ago.
Vanities
and they had a little bit
now.
different vibe. They are just so fresh. And again, new product, always. People are really excited by it. And to your point, the vanities. I mean, that's a whole new category for them that is doing really, really well. So I'm really lucky to have these brand partners and some accessories as well. I mean, Eddie Lawrence, who does the fantastic books out of Atlanta,
I know.
all the customization.
They've always been special. I love
such a nice guy, but his creativity is just like next level. CFC and Noir are both partners of mine as well. And CFC is abbreviated for Custom Furniture and Cabinetry. That's how they started. They were a custom cabinet builder in California. And I have to remind people in my territory often, I'm like, this is basically your own, like, think about this as your own workshop.
Wow. I didn't even know that.
They can do, then I'm not doing my job. And now you do. But not only can we customize by changing the finish, the products that they have within their existing line, but we have the ability to customize and actually manufacture something that's not in existence, and they do it beautifully.
They are a great line.
Yeah,
and Noir. Tell us a little bit more about those two brands.
Sure. So they're California-based.
They're related, right?
They are. So actually, the designer, and this is interesting. In this day and age, usually you have a design team. To put out this kind of product. I mean, so many new products each season, and really just to have that true creativity. I think for me personally, I think that at some point I would just tap out. I wouldn't have any more ideas. But George actually is at the helm of the design team for both brands, and he's the only person, the sole designer. Does not use CAD.
For everything new.
Everything.
Wow.
Everything.
Lighting too.
Mad genius, right?
Everything.
I mean, so creative. And just fascinating, like to me, that one person can think up
create
all of this and put all of it out there, and ever evolving. And actually, Noir is really interesting in that
it's
they
not
launch
duplicated really
no,
either. Like
it's not. And it's also Noir is it's constructed from like 100% wood product. It is not, of course, some materials sometimes will have
a veneer,
brass or marble or other surfaces, but their wood product is all wood. There's no fiberboard. There's no MDF. It's no particle board. It is 100% wood. And there aren't a lot of brands out there that can say that. But what they do is so innovative and fresh and really interesting. And it's really kind of the jewelry. And I feel this way about Arteriors often, too. It's the jewelry in the room. It's that moment.
They're the conversation pieces.
Absolutely. Yeah.
They really are.
And I've seen people do some really cool things with a lot of my Noir products, repurposing it into sink bases, that type of thing. Even using it, building it into walls, inset to make it, like a custom cabinet.
So you represent quite a few very, very strong, well-known brands in the industry.
Yeah, I'm lucky.
I mean, when you think about all the different names you represent,
I'm your go-to.
And you look at their catalogs, how extensive they are. That's a job in itself to really stay on top of.
Yeah. So I have no hobbies. How's that?
Okay, so that's how it is.
Your hobby is that.
My hobby is.
Well, so I'll ask you a question then. From a design standpoint, of all the things that you sell, is there Is there one area that like you really personally like love to sell more than another?
It's a great question.
Not necessarily a company, but a
lighting.
type of
I love lighting. I think
know.
lighting makes the space.
Right.
It makes the room.
It's the most fun thing to look for, I feel like.
Do you think so? I enjoy lighting. I really do. And I can't really speak as to why, but I think it just, for me, and maybe it's because really I have so many brand partners that do such strong. They also own that category in such a big way.
They really do. All those brands. Yeah. I mean, even to Noir has such funky.
Oh yeah.
They're not a huge catalog of lighting, but all funky. You have a Noir light fixture.
Mm-hmm. Well, and actually, in fairness, so you're asking me what I like to sell the most. I mean, I do love the lighting, but I've actually come to really love upholstery too. That was a category that I had not touched on really before joining J. Douglas. And actually, we have a brand that we sell exclusively. There's really only one other sales agency in the U.S. that sells it. And I think one of the reasons I love to sell it is I've been to the factory. I've met the people. I understand and trust in the construction. The story is a good one. It's still American sourced and American made. So not just is it constructed in the U.S., actually just outside of High Point, but it's also the product itself is sourced in the U.S., which I think, we don't have a lot of stories like that out there. But as a designer, and you and I can attest to this, in this world, and I get these calls occasionally where, your customer is using Google Lens and they're price comparing, and it's it's ridiculous. So maddening. You've done all the work, and you occasionally have that customer or that client, I should say, who just thinks they're doing themselves a favor when in fact it opens up a whole can of worms. But I love that Charter Street actually their line of distribution is so clean, so we're not selling to anybody but trade, so it's not shoppable. So it's not only a great product, but it really then kind of quiets or completely nullifies that conversation that you would have. But I love how the product delivers. It shows beautifully, and it's a nice line, boutique kind of bespoke product, and that's actually kind of been my kind of my fun pet project since I got here. I just didn't know how much I'd enjoy that category.
So as new things are coming out with all these companies, are you looking forward to that, or are you looking at that as like, this is more than
Christmas?
It is like
it is Christmas.
I love when I get the new catalogs, or I see new 100 products uploaded today.
I love it. I feel like that teenage girl that actually was always waiting for her Teen Beat or Glamour magazine. They come in the mail back when we used to get subscriptions.
So how do you learn about when they're like Noir or Terriers when they're coming out with stuff? Do they have a meeting where you go and you get shown the things?
Yeah, absolutely. And the stories are, again, it's so great, right, to understand the backstory, to know kind of how the product, kind of how it evolved. So each brand has obviously usually a sales manager, somebody at the helm, kind of that's our, kind of our contact, our direct contact, and we'll usually get on a Zoom call as a group, and they'll walk us through the new product introductions and tell us the backstory, which is really fascinating.
Really
Can you imagine? There's a lot of note taking, which is great, and the photos and lots of oohs and ahs. But then we'll also follow up when we actually see that particular manufacturer at the next. The next market. So, we have Atlanta market in every January and every July. So January market's just a matter of weeks away.
Wow.
And we'll do a walkthrough of all the new product and a refresh on what's existing. Because, sometimes we find ourselves getting, I may have certain products. You asked earlier, do I have certain things that are my favorites? I think we all do.
I know, and I hate to reuse things, but sometimes they're just so good that it's like, okay.
But I have to force myself sometimes to I need to talk to my counterparts in other, that are doing what I do elsewhere in the country or in the region, and say what's working for you? Tell me what are you getting traction from, and what's the backstory? Why is that working for you? And we'll exchange those stories, which is so important because again, ultimately, I come back and I can actually make that beneficial for my clients here. So I learn always, even about products that are already existing in the line. I'm still learning more about those because they're vast companies and brands.
A lot of
I don't want to
SKUs.
buy, and I really don't want to be a mile wide and an inch deep. I really want it to be focused and be a resource, that's trusted. Yeah. Good question.
So J. Douglas had their own booth.
So we have our own showroom.
In High Point.
We do.
Which is, at least from my perspective, that's unusual because all the reps that we know, they're all inside of other, the brands that they're representing.
Yes.
But you have multiple brands in your showroom,
Exactly.
which is,
so
that's a real commitment from a rep company.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But I think, again, it kind of speaks to, it's really a testament to Doug's belief in the brand. But what that does is it gives us an opportunity for the brands that might be kind of smaller, boutique companies that might not be able to, well, they probably could, but they may not want to actually take on the commitment, which is a big one, of their own corporate showroom in those environments. So we actually then can staff and show their product in a really beautiful way under one roof in that market. So, some of those smaller brands can actually be housed there, so they still get a presence.
Right.
Because we want to make sure that our clients have the ability to see each of our brand partners at market, and it's also nice to have it, again, outside of, Arterios has their really beautiful showroom.
Right.
We cover a lot of ground. So we do have the corporate showrooms, but then we have our showroom in addition too. And in our showroom, not only do we show those brands that are only housed in our showroom, but if you notice, we'll have the rugs from Loloy. We'll even have some of the one of a kind rugs from Loloy that are beautiful, and then we'll have lighting and accessories,
and they can set each other
kind of
off.
cross merchandised, so that we can actually again remind our clients when we're in there that don't forget we have this, and this, and then we can circle back to those corporate showrooms.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a pretty impressive organization. It's very, very well thought out.
Right.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, we get our steps in at High Point for sure.
Oh, I know. That's the best part of at least it's like exercise for fun.
So what did you think of High Point? What was your...
I was overwhelmed by it. I've been in a number of different businesses. I've spent a lot of time going to trade shows representing products and brands that I either had or and was selling. And like you said, a lot of steps. It's a whole city of just furnishings.
Fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think of what Dakota used to be here in South Florida. That's nothing compared to what High Point is.
Yeah.
It's like I said when we were going to the airport leaving, I said to Tiffany, you need to start bringing some of the clients here.
So how do you think about that? What's your thought on that?
I thought of one client immediately, like they would have walked around and would have bought everything for their entire house.
Right.
Well, I always say, with clients in general and in my own design processes, we all love a lot of things and we appreciate so much. So going to a High Point, you just see so many things you love and want to use anywhere and everywhere because they're all so cool or beautiful and edgy and new or what have you. But not every project can house each thing. So that might be distracting for somebody who can't compartmentalize.
I'm that person.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So
that's my future lake house. That's my future country house.
But it's another...
And I did so many of those little picture boards in my brain. Was like, okay, this would be great for a Yellowstone ranch. And this would look great, in a New York City apartment. You caught part of, you do that kind of...
I'll say it again on this podcast, that anyone who's considering or thinking of remodeling, redoing the house, even if it's one room and they feel they're going to spend, money that they're caring about, they should get a designer and they should go to High Point. They should go see.
Yeah.
It's just...
It really opens your eyes to the possibilities, doesn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
It's a special experience.
Not to knock furniture stores, but when you go into a furniture store, it's like they have the chairs on the floor, but I don't think people realize that this chair, you could get probably 500 different ways. There's so many other fabrics you can get, the different wood finishes on the legs and so forth, that I don't think people know that. I don't think people realize that.
Scott, are you looking to take over my job?
No, but that's one of the reasons. That's one of the reasons why we're doing this podcast, is to try to anyone who listens to educate them more that it's an endless amount of possibilities. That you don't have to just stick with the one thing that you saw. That can be changed. I call Tiffany a COM junkie.
Well, I like
I love it.
Fabrics.
We get all the orders that come in. It's for me in the beginning
when
I got
special.
Yeah, when I got involved with her like 3 years ago in this business, I would say to her, "Why are we selling a chair to this client?" And we're putting a different fabric on, a different trim on, and now we're specifying the color of the leg to be a different finish. What was wrong with the one that's on the website? She's like, that's not what the end result I want to have in this house.
And so 3 years later, you understand.
Oh,
right?
Yeah. Well, you understand when you see the home done.
Yes, yeah.
I've had the pleasure and I'll say unique pleasure to have worked with some of the most talented artists in the world, from music and entertainment and so forth, from Paul McCartney to you name it.
Oh my gosh! Wow,
but
goodness.
no one's more talented than what I see Tiffany do. And then she, which is going to lead me to my next question I want to ask you is that she's constantly sending on Instagram, every day she sends me something to look at that another design is doing or another interior design firm is doing. Look at this room they did. Look at this and look at that. And there's a lot of very, very talented interior designers that are out there. And she's showing it to me on social media. So what you do, is social media important or part of what you do?
Very. So I don't think it's so important like my role in social media, but I look very closely at what my clients are doing. It's really important for me. In order for me to be a helpful resource to them, I have to have some sense of what your projects look like, kind of what the execution is design-wise for you. Perfect example today, walking into your office, kind of looking at your job board and seeing, cuttings and so forth.
Yeah.
I mean, I may be able to be like, do you already have, I think you're assigned to RIP for Leloy, so I can't say this, but usually I'll walk in and be like, do you have a rug? Because I have a rug. I have, I've got a beautiful, like I have something that will correspond, or I have a light like that's going to work really well with this particular collection. So, so I think that's, kind of value that, that hopefully that I bring. Yeah.
What do the brands expect from you at all? Like, and what does it look like for the cross promotion? Like, obviously, when you tag a brand, or like, who evolves that? Is that the brands themselves or J. Douglas? Like,
so the brands each are, I think,
spearheading.
They have their social media like teams. They're all, again, that's a job, a role that they actually all have internally, and of course they want us to promote that as much as we possibly can. I mean, who would ever have imagined like the impact of that to our industry, right? No. Like it's just kind of mind-boggling. Well, you and I were talking about technology and its impact earlier. No, it's pretty amazing. But I think that you're asking about the expectation. For me personally, I think the value that I bring is really, again, like the service, but really to make sure that that I'm telling the story that the brands want to be told. Flipping through a catalog is not tactile. I want you to have samples. I need you to have things in your hands so you can experience, and so that your clients can experience that too. So I really try and encourage my accounts to lean on me for those resources. We were talking about your library earlier. It's like, like what can I do?
I don't think we do a good job with that. I don't think we lean on yourself or.
But I feel as the team has grown now here, we'll be able to lean on our reps more.
We also don't do a great job on social media at all. We don't really put any emphasis into it.
Too. That's our 2025
You're busy
goal.
with this podcast. You've got a lot going on.
And it's our goal.
Yeah. I think the podcast is really now making us rethink that we need to put more of an effort into the social
and
side.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like we're all in a similar age group. That's
not
it's like a whole new skill set.
Yeah,
it
is.
So I'd say, take it easy on yourself. Don't put too much pressure, on yourself to understand and know all of that. I think that's where, these younger people, having somebody in your office, an intern even, usually can take that
over.
And
they come by it so righteously, like just innately in that age group, in that demographic. Because I'm one of these people who's such a perfectionist. I don't want to put anything that doesn't look perfect online. And meanwhile, some people like totally don't overthink it. Like, it doesn't matter if there's blue tape still on there for a paint touch up.
You're going to wait till the last
I'll
shot.
wait. And then that never ends up coming to fruition. We've moved on, or time's moved on anyway.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm terrible about, I have done projects on my own. So, and I joke that, half of being smart is knowing what you're dumb at. So I know just enough about design to keep out of trouble, and then come to the professionals for the things that I know I don't know anything about. But I've always, and I look back at this and I think, gosh, one of my greatest regrets is I always forget to take the before pictures. I always take the after pictures. And you really want to be able to appreciate just how far you've come in a project. And
that is the gratification. Yeah. I always say that too, actually, that it's some of these projects that are existing are almost more fun than starting from scratch, because it's reshaping something and breathing new life into it. You can start from scratch and create something that's really magnificent, but starting with something that was really odd or awful or, had a lot of quirks, and then creating something really
It's kind of tough, though, sometimes just to tell somebody that their baby is ugly.
I know. It's
the home that
easier
you've
when
been
they
living
call
in for
you
20
knowing
years.
it very easily.
It's a good saying you just said.
Yeah, you just tread gently. Yeah, or tread lightly. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
I know. So interesting. I'm fascinated by the podcast, though. I think you have a fan of me now. I'm going to make a point. I listened to a few of your previous podcasts after I met you in October, and
You're a work in progress.
no, I love it though.
There's just
You and
so
I talked about
much
this earlier.
information.
You know, I spend a lot of time in the car, and I'm on the phone quite a bit. Hands free. I'm careful, but this is a better use of my time listening to podcasts. There's so much to learn.
There's so much
about
to learn.
and not just specific to design, but about personalities and people and kind of what makes us tick. And this is, at the end of the day, we are selling, or I am selling product. But it's really, I mean, this is, again, such an intimate industry.
It is.
And so it's really about the people and the personalities.
It is, and I love that too. Like, even through you and learning the stories of these brands and of these items, and there's just not enough hours in the day to always, remember all those things. So
do you feel like your clients appreciate knowing kind of the backstory of some of
Love
the brands? Do they?
Yeah. And like I said, a big part of what I do, I feel like, is educating people on what is available, which is endless.
Yeah.
So even though it's endless and it's available, I always say, like, do you know how many I edited to get to these 3?
Yeah.
Do you know, do you know how much we edited, like, out of all those crazy chairs and all the crazy light fixtures or lamps? Like, literally, as we've curated your house, I think only these 3 are like a perfect complement.
Isn't that amazing?
Like, so like,
Yeah.
there was a lot of editing to get to.
Yeah. And you hope that
These
people, sometimes they,
selections.
again, whether people really can grasp just how much goes into that,
They
it's hard to
don't.
know, but we know.
And that's why we're also doing this, is really, like, it is kind of a profession where people think, oh, well, I can do that myself, versus understanding all the many facets.
Oh, yeah, the
and the
construction
coordination
and all of it, yeah.
is truly so much of what we do. And, it's not always easy and seamless, but at the end of the day, I mean, there's nothing we won't do to make it right, at the end of the project.
Well, and I
have
think
that gratification.
To your point, though, again, just there's so many facets to the business, and the things that nobody, like the end user, would never be able to understand is something as simple as actually receiving the product, the delivery of that chest or that or that console. Simple things like that. We can't really generally deliver to a residential address.
Correct.
So
The
then
world doesn't
there's-
work like
yeah.
that. I mean, in some instances we can. Is it ideal? No. That's when things go wrong. And again, that's
don't get
why
it.
it's so important to have somebody on your side that can manage all of that for you. I always tell my customers, or my clients, I should say, I'm like, that's where we come in. I should be, to your point, I have several brands, but I should be the single point of contact for you. You should not have to have a relationship individually with multiple brands. You should have one number, that's mine, one email, that's mine. So something does go sideways, I'm your single point of contact. We'll take it from there. Something arrived damaged, or maybe short shipped, maybe there's an invoicing or billing question or issue. That's what I'm here for. So not only to tell the story about the product and the brands and educate, but really the service.
Solution and the service.
Yeah, and that's important. And I really do. Like, I take that very seriously. Again, and it kind of comes back to just being a young person in business all those years ago, and growing up working in customer service, even in high school, having weekend jobs. It's kind of part of my core. It's like in my DNA.
You do it well.
Well, thank you. I appreciate
and we're
it.
grateful that you joined us today. We always have like these
Last couple of questions we want to ask.
for fun. These are more just for fun.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to ask you a couple of, think of design. Is there a hotel that comes to mind that you love the design?
Oh, goodness.
Something that stands out. That's.
Oh, I hate to say this. Well, I like anything that makes me feel at home. And honestly, this is not a well-known hotel, but it's more an inn, kind of a luxury inn in Arizona in Paradise Valley.
Ooh.
The Hermosa Inn, La Hermosa.
Uh-huh.
It's just, I love Spanish, adobe, and also
wow.
Mediterranean architecture.
Is that like near Scottsdale?
Yeah, I think it's Paradise Valley is the address, is the actual city, but yes, just outside of Scottsdale. It's not a grand hotel. I think what I like is that it just
the way you feel when you're there.
Precisely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can think of grand hotels that are awe-inspiring, but this is really more again what I enjoy. Yeah,
I
for
love
sure.
that.
Yeah, if you haven't been, go.
I have to check it out.
It's special. Yeah,
I think I may have stayed there. It sounds familiar.
yeah. Be sure you go in the winter.
Sounds familiar.
Don't go in July.
What is your favorite wardrobe accessory?
Oh goodness. Spanx.
I love that. Talk about an amazing story.
No kidding, right?
Like there's
I know.
so much there.
Well, and now she's launched her shoe brand. Have
I
you seen
know.
those? I don't know.
The
What do you think? I'm
sneaks,
curious.
right?
What do you think about those?
Sneak.
I'm like,
I've actually gone online to maybe
ditto.
buy a
Yeah.
pair, but then I'm like, do I want to spend $500 on that? But then again, I get it.
yeah.
But yeah, what a brilliant,
Unbelievable.
and she's somebody too who I listen to often and follow, which brings back what we do here at iDesign Lab. But everybody's stories are just so fascinating, and the growth.
Oh yeah.
I have so much
Well, and
respect for it.
I don't know her, Sarah,
No,
but
yeah.
I know people that know her pretty well, just having been in
Well, in
Atlanta.
Atlanta,
And my
right?
friends that have kids that are close in age that went to school with her kids, and she's legit. I mean, everything I know about her, just what you see is really truly who
Yeah.
she is, and she gives back in a big way. And of course, really took care of her employees when she sold the company. But no, I joke about that, but it's actually kind of true. I feel like that changed that's transformed how clothing
I think
fits.
most women had transformed how
It's a foundation.
It is.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
It's truly brilliant. It's one of those things that, and it keeps getting better.
I agree. I mean, I have to, it's a little embarrassing, but I'm like, if you're asking me, you want the honest to God
actually,
truth.
That might be the best answer, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good answer.
I think most people would answer that if they were being truthful.
Two more questions.
Sure.
With all the things that you represent, is there a favorite design element?
Design element?
Yeah, or
Well, she
design
said
piece.
lighting, but
Lighting, for sure.
Is there a piece or more of a...
I'm going to get in trouble because I have so many. Honestly, we have, oh God, I'm so lucky because we have so many good things. There's
an item that just stands out to you that's like...
There are a couple, honestly,
Okay.
but if I'm going to talk about lighting, our Terriers recently launched, and it was actually 2 seasons ago, but it was called the Bilal chandelier, and it's beautiful, and it's basically kind of mimics like eucalyptus leaves. It's stunning.
Oh, yeah, I know it.
But I'm very excited to report that because I love green as a color.
I do too.
It
I
might
actually
be,
am specking that right now. For
and it
someone.
might be. Are you? And did you see the flush mount that they introduced?
No,
So that's
I don't know if
beautiful,
I did.
and that has done very well. It's gorgeous, and that as a category is something that honestly I think we were really in need of larger scale flush mounts, and
Agreed.
I think that they
like
have
the diameter.
yeah, and they've done a
totally.
really nice job with this last launch, and it's been very well received. I would look specifically at, like the Farah, the Bilal, but I love the Bilal. But I'm actually most excited. I got a little tip from some folks in the management team that's actually going to be released in a white colorway, which I love. I just love the simplicity
anything
of that.
with white,
I mean, I
especially
love
in
green,
South
but that's more of a
Florida.
commitment.
Always
Yep.
rings true.
Yeah,
Like
so
people,
that's kind of my favorite now, but also going to be my future favorite. Yeah, for sure.
I love that.
Absolutely.
favorite restaurant design wise, like a restaurant that's just so pretty, or again, it could be a feeling.
Goodness. I would almost say, could it be someone's home?
Oh, I
not
love home
necessarily-
entertaining.
Well,
I
so
love home entertaining.
my
No answer is a wrong answer, but every answer is always
my
interesting.
sister and I were lucky enough with her kids years ago to stay in Granada, Spain. Actually, her life partner, her Stephen, has a home in Granada and has had it for years. And we went and did like a fun girls trip years ago. And there's something about being, and actually it's literally you open the windows and you're looking directly at the Alhambra. So I mean, it's breathtaking. So to be cooking and breaking bread, if you will, in that environment, and with loved ones, that's pretty special. So I can think of restaurants that I love, and I love a good meal, and I love a good glass of wine. But I think that really just
the environment.
When I think about that's more memorable.
I agree.
Yeah.
That is magical.
And I'm a sucker for beautiful tile work, and all of the color, and I love that they're so fearless with all of that. And it's
so
just it's a special space.
Oh.
Yeah, and I love that. Yeah.
I do too.
Yeah.
What a great way to.
Although, shouldn't it be my own kitchen?
No, I feel like cooking in other people's kitchens in Europe is definitely a better.
If you've not been to Granada, I will tell you, it's an all-time favorite for me. I have such affection for that area.
Do you guys get to go often?
No, I've not had a chance to go back. And I think one of the reasons that but I do need to go back for sure. One of the reasons I like it so much is it reminds me a little bit of home. The topography in Granada reminds me a great deal of northern Nevada, which is where I'm from. And their climate is not just completely dissimilar either, but it's beautiful. And let's be honest, the Spanish people are lovely, and the food's lovely, and the language is pretty easy, and it's just
romance
everything
languages.
about it. Make a trip,
Well, I love that.
Yeah.
It's a good way to wrap up on a high note. Thank you so much
so
for joining us.
Thank you for having me, and Merry Christmas or
Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays, whatever everybody is celebrating. But thank you.
True. Well, thank you.
Appreciate it.
iDesign Labs podcast is an SW Group production in association with the 5-Star and TW Interiors. To learn more about iDesign Lab or TW Interiors, please visit twinteriors.com.